And we're live. Today we're going to be going to the Forbidden City in Beijing, and we're going to start our journey in Jingshan Park, and that's going to give us an amazing overview over the whole of the Forbidden City. Welcome to everyone that's just joined, and so that's what we're going to do. We're going to when you come to the Forbidden City, you start at the one end and then you walk all the way to the other end, and then when you exit, there's this park, the Jingshan Park, and it's located on a hill, and you walk up the hill and then you get a beautiful view over the Forbidden City. So that's where we're going to start, because the Forbidden City is so massive and so big. To really get like a sense of scale, I thought it would be helpful to start at the end, and so that's what we're going to do today. So thank you for everyone that's joined. Let's begin. If you're new to the channel, my name's Matt, and Neil says, "Morning, Matt. Maybe connect a few seconds prior to talking." Yes, so there's a little bit of a delay of about 20 seconds when I go live. So I just wanted to, before we begin, I just want to check if you're on the chat, maybe just say hi. Oh, Carly's saying, "Hey Matt, hey Neil." It's always good to see who's around. So we're going to start now in a few seconds. Oh, welcome Adrian. Happy New Year. Here at the viewpoint. This is usually going to be the end of when you exit the Forbidden City. There's a hill, and I'll be talking about that. Okay, so this is going to be about a 45-minute tour, and the Forbidden City is so massive. It's bigger than, if you've been to Paris and you've been to Versailles, it's bigger than Versailles. So it's just on a scale that is unimaginable. Oh, welcome Sandy, welcome Joanne, and welcome Cindy from a snowy Detroit. And you'll see there's going to be snow here today. So let's begin. And I've muted the audio, so you'll be able to hear me very clearly. So let's just talk about where we're gonna begin today. So we're looking out at the Forbidden City, and we're in an area called Jingshan Park, which is a park directly opposite the Forbidden City. It's about 23 hectares in size, or 53 acres, and it's immediately north of the Forbidden City. And the focal point of this park is the artificial hill that I'm standing on, called Jingshan, or Prospect Hill. It was formerly an imperial garden that was attached to the grounds of the Forbidden City, and it was open to the public in 1928. And my little tip, or welcome Jacques, for coming to the Forbidden City, is that when you come to the Forbidden City, as soon as you exit, you have to come to Jingshan Park to get, this view that we're seeing now. Oh, Diane says, "Cheers from cold Florida, first visited in 1979, and then you could enter the pavilions." Oh, and Joanne says, "I visited the Forbidden City 15 years ago, but never got to the park." So that would be my travel tip, is definitely get to the park. You get this view. Now, I took this in December, so it was the middle of winter, and as we walk through the Forbidden City, you'll see just how it's covered in snow. And I went early in the morning at about 8:30, and so the sun, it's just really magical to see the sun rising. You'll see it as soon as we leave Jingshan Park. Hey Raven, So Jingshan's history, where we're standing, dates back almost 1,000 years. The hill that we're standing on is about 45 meters or 150 feet. It's an artificial hill that was constructed in the Yongle era of the Ming Dynasty. And it was actually, if we're looking now at the Forbidden City, it was actually entirely created from the soil that was excavated to form the moats around the imperial palace and nearby canals. So here we are, we're entering the Forbidden City at the Meridian Gate. So the first question I always think about is, why is it called the Forbidden City? So the Forbidden City is a palace complex at the heart of Beijing, bigger than Versailles in Paris. It's massive. It was commissioned in the 1406 by the Yongle Emperor of the Ming Dynasty, and was first officially occupied in 1420. But why was it called the Forbidden City? Well, it was so named because access to the area was barred to most of the subjects of the realm. So if you were just an ordinary person, you would not have access to the Forbidden City. Government functionaries and even imperial family were permitted only limited access, and the emperor alone could enter any section at will. Now, the Forbidden City is about 178 acres, or about 72 hectares in size, and it was designated a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 1987 in recognition of its importance as the center of Chinese power for 5 centuries, as well as its unparalleled architecture and its current role as the Palace Museum of Dynastic Art and History. So I want to show you, I'm going to share with you a quick picture just to help you understand the scale. So if you look at the top of that picture, with that green area, that's the Jingshan Park. And here we have entered through the Meridian Gate, and we're making our way through each. You can see at the bottom there's walls that separate the different areas. We're going through that middle section, through those areas. That's what we're going to be walking through today. So that picture will just help to so there you can see Jingshan Park at the top, and then we're right there at the front, at the bottom, at the sun. Neil says, was security high? I recall a Hego guide had some police encounters. Yeah, I didn't have any issues at all. And I came early in the morning, and so we had, what was really beautiful, we had this beautiful winter sun. There you can see it on the left-hand side. And it was just such a beautiful time of day, a nice cold winter's day. They'd cleaned up the snow, so on each side of the palace, you'll see like a line of white. That's where the snow is kept. So we're now in the outer court, or the southern portion of the Forbidden City, which features 3 main halls. And the outer court was the venue for the emperor's court and grand audiences. This is where like the military would come if there was some important event. And we're gonna now enter a little bit closer, go through into the next section. Just, oh, so beautiful. If I can also give some advice, is to come in the morning. You got, especially in winter, you've got that beautiful light just bathing the area, and it just gives it a beautiful atmosphere. Now, I also want to talk quickly about, well, let's talk about the history, and then we'll talk about the movie The Last Emperor. So let's just, I'm going to do quite a long form history, so about the Forbidden City. So the Forbidden City is a large precinct of red walls and yellow glazed roof tiles. That's what we saw at the top of Jingsan Park, looking down on the Forbidden City. And it's located in the heart of China's capital, Beijing. As its name suggests, the precinct is a micro-city in its own right, measuring about 961 meters in length and about 753 meters in width. Oh, lethargy says hi. Now, the Forbidden City is composed of more than 90 palace compounds. It's huge, massive, including 98 buildings surrounded by a moat that's as wide as 53 meters. So you can see that beautiful snow. Now, I'll tell you a little bit about the moat. I didn't film the moat because it was outside, but the moat itself was frozen over completely. Now, the Forbidden City was the political and ritual center of China for over 500 years after its completion in 1420. The Forbidden City and its history was home to 24 emperors and their families and servants during the Ming Dynasty. The Ming Dynasty was from 1368 to 1644, and the Qing Dynasty that was from 1644 to 1911. And the last occupant, who was also the last emperor of Imperial China, Puyi, was expelled in 1925. And I'll tell you, once I've finished talking about the history, we'll talk more about that movie, which I'll share on my Facebook group, because once you've seen this tour, I would really recommend that you go watch The Last Emperor. We'll talk about that movie a little bit later on. Now, although it's no longer an imperial precinct, it remains as one of the most important cultural heritage sites and the most visited museum in the People's Republic of China, with an average of 80,000 visitors a day. Even though there are so many people, you don't feel overwhelmed because the complex itself is just so massive. Now, the construction of the Forbidden City was a result of a coup d'etat plotted by the fourth son of the Ming Dynasty. And he was made emperor in 1402, so that's when they started planning. And in order to solidify power, the Chengzu emperor moved the capital of China, as well as his army, from Nanjing, which is in southeastern China, to Beijing. And there he began building a new heart of the empire, the Forbidden City. Now, with the establishment of the Qing Dynasty in 1644, that did not lessen the Forbidden City's pivotal status, as the Manchu imperial family continued to live and rule there. While no major change has been made since its completion, the precinct has undergone various renovations and minor constructions well into the 21st century. And that's why you can look at it today and it still looks amazing, because it's constantly being worked on and repaired and restored. Since the Forbidden City is a ceremonial, ritual and living space, the architects who designed its layout followed the ideal cosmic order in Confucian ideology that had held Chinese social structure together for centuries. This layout ensured that all activities within this microcity were conducted in a manner appropriate to the participants' social and familial roles. So you'll see that oh, hi Tracy. You'll see that there's an outer court and then an inner court, and then on the right and the left side of Forbidden City is where everybody had like lived with the living quarters. The architectural style also reflects a sense of hierarchy. Each structure was designed in accordance with the treatise on architectural methods, an 11th century manual that specified particular designs for different ranks in Chinese social structure, as well as they took in consideration the feng shui. So the buildings were positioned in a certain direction to create good feng shui. Now, public and domestic spheres are clearly divided in the Forbidden City. The southern half, or the outer court that we're walking through right now, contains spectacular palace compounds of superhuman scale, and this outer court belonged to the realm of state affairs, and only men had access to its spaces. It included the emperor's formal reception halls, places for religious rituals and state ceremonies, and also the Meridian Gate. That's the gate that you enter when you first come into the Forbidden City. So here you can see one of those religious areas. So that, I think it's an ibis, you would put incense in its mouth. And so while the outer court is reserved for men, the inner court, which we'll get to see a little bit later, is the domestic space dedicated to their imperial family. So when you first walk into the Forbidden City, it's these grand, massive buildings. And then as you go further in, it becomes a space for where the king can relax, where all his servants are, consorts, family, and where everyone was their residence. So we arrived here at 8:30, and I think by the time I'd reached the back of the end of the Forbidden City, it was about 1 o'clock. So really, really a massive space. So the emperor's residence, known as the Palace of Heavenly Purity, is located on the south side. Is located to the south, while the Empress's residence, the Palace of Earthly Tranquility, is to the north. And between these massive spaces, the residence of the emperor's consorts flank the three major palaces in the inner court. So we're walking through this big main area, and then on each side, on the right and the left, is where the residences are. Oh, it's just amazing to be here again and just look out. There's just so much details to see in every little corner. Now today, the Forbidden City is still a changing site, as well as a modern museum and historical site. You've got the museum that strikes, there's a couple of museums actually in the Forbidden City. One that you may miss, and which I recommend that you don't miss, is when you exit the Forbidden City. Don't exit straight away. There's a stair that takes you to the wall, and if you go up there, there's a double-story building and a really beautiful museum up there that people often miss when they come to the Forbidden City. Now I want to talk about a movie called The Last Emperor. It's a 1987 epic biographical drama film about the life of Puyi, who was the final emperor of China. And I'm going to show you a little picture of it quickly. There it is. So that's from the 1987 film. It was shot on location here at the Forbidden City, which is amazing. And I found it really helpful to watch, just to give you like context and to see how the palace was used. Sandy said she loved that movie, so we're going to talk a little bit about that movie now. So it's a film about the life of Puyi, the final emperor of China. It was directed by Italian director Bernardo Bertolucci from a screenplay that he co-wrote with Mark Peplow, which was adapted from Puyi's 1964 autobiography. So the film depicts Puyi's life from his ascent to the throne as a small boy, and that's why you saw in the poster of the movie, there's just this small boy, because he became emperor at a very young age. So yeah, it depicts his life as a small boy to his imprisonment and political rehabilitation by the Chinese Communist Party, and it stars John Lone in the leading role. Interestingly enough, it was the first Western feature film authorized by the People's Republic of China to film in the Forbidden City in Beijing. So just amazing that you could, like, that it was shot on location just makes it more real, and it's really magic film, and I'll tell you a little bit more about it. So the just a couple of awards that it won. The Last Emperor premiered in 1987 at the Tokyo International Film Festival and was released in the US in November of that year. It earned widespread positive reviews from critics and was also a commercial success. And at the 60th Academy Awards, it won all 9 Oscars that it was nominated for, including Best Picture, Best Director, Best Adapted Screenplay, and it also won several other accolades, including BAFTA Awards, 4 Golden Globes, 9 David D. Donatello Awards, and a Grammy Award for its music score. So it's a great film, and I really recommend watching it. Let's talk a little bit about the plot. So the plot. By 1950, the 44-year-old Puyi, the former emperor of China, has been in custody for 5 years since his capture by the Red Army during the Soviet invasion of Manchuria. In the recently established People's Republic of China, Puyi arrives as a political. Soon after his arrival, Puyi attempts suicide but is quickly rescued and told he must stand trial. Then the film goes to 42 years earlier in 1908, where a toddler, Puyi, is summoned to the Forbidden City by the dying Empress Dowager Cixi after telling him that the previous emperor had died earlier that day. Cixi tells Puyi that he is to be the next emperor. After his coronation, Puyi, frightened by his new surroundings, repeatedly expresses his wish to go home, but is denied. Despite having scores of palace eunuchs and maids to wait on him, his only real friend is his wet nurse. As he grows up, his upbringing is confined entirely to the imperial palace, and he is prohibited from leaving. So it just gives you a really good insight. Like, not only were not everyone was allowed into the Forbidden City, hence the name, but the emperor himself wasn't allowed to go outside. And so there's a lot of like interesting things you realize like that when you watching the movie, which I found quite interesting. One day he is visited by his younger brother, Puji, who tells him he's no longer the emperor and that China has become a republic. In 1919, Reginald Johnson is appointed Puyi's tutor and gives him a Western-style education, and Puyi becomes increasingly desirous to leave the Forbidden City. Johnson, wary of the courtier's expensive lifestyle, convinces Puyi that the best way of achieving this is through marriage, and Puyi subsequently gets married. And then he sets about reforming the Forbidden City, including expelling the palace eunuchs. However, in 1924, he himself is expelled from the palace and exiled to Tianjin following the Beijing coup. Yeah, look at that, massive. anyway, so he leaves the Forbidden City. He ends up becoming like going to jail and then being a prisoner and all of that, and eventually ends up as a gardener. So it's a really interesting story, going from being the emperor of China to a gardener. And there's a beautiful scene at the end of the movie, which you just have to watch. I'll tell you a little bit about it. So Puyi later, at the end of the film, he visits the Forbidden City, where he meets an assertive young boy wearing a red scarf, and the boy, not knowing who he is, orders Puyi to step away from the throne. But Puyi proves that he was indeed the son of heaven before approaching the throne, and behind it Puyi finds a 60-year-old pet cricket that he was given by an official on his coronation day, and gives it to the child. Amazed by the gift, the boy turns to talk to Puyi, but finds that he has disappeared. In 1987, and then it cuts to 1987, a tour guide leads a group through the palace, stopping in front of the throne, and the guide sums up Puyi's life in a few brief sentences before concluding that he passed away in 1967. So, very beautiful film. Won all the Academy Awards, all 9 Academy Awards that it was nominated for. And yeah, just a really beautifully made film. Evelyn says, this really does not look like wintertime. Such a beautiful sky. So yeah, that's The Last Emperor. I highly recommend watching the film. I've watched it before. I will share a link on the Facebook group, and I definitely recommend going to watch that film. You're going to see the same Forbidden City we're seeing today, because it was filmed on location at the Forbidden City in 1987. Alda Thachi says, I watched The Last Emperor as a child, but I don't remember it. Yeah, it's really a beautiful film, and I really recommend seeing it again. So Neil's asking what his age was at his death. He was 61 years old. He was born on the 7th of February in 1906, and passed away on October the 17th, 1967. And became emperor at 2 years and 10 months. So shortly, we're going to see this beautifully ornate dragon wall, which I'll be telling you about. We should see it in the next 5 minutes or so. So you can see now, as we've walked through when you come in the outer court, everything's huge and expansive. As we get further and further into the Forbidden City, the spaces get smaller and smaller. Yes, so Cindy's asking, can you go inside the living quarters? Yes, so this is actually one of the living quarters that we're going to look into now, but there's another one where we're going to actually walk inside, and that's going to be right at the end of the tour. That was the Emperor's mother's residence. So Neil's asking, what year was this open to the public? It was open to the public from 1925. But and that's a year before. So Puyi was evicted in 1924. And then you can see just a year after that, it became open to the public, which is a huge thing, because previously a woman couldn't have access, and you had to be a man, and then you still had, you had to have a certain role or function or be part of the government to even just get inside the outer court. Not just anybody could come inside. So here we have some of the birds, and you'll see that bird, he's got like his mouth is open. They'll usually put incense inside there, and incense inside there as well. I think we're going to go have a look and see what's inside here. There's some beautiful, really beautiful clocks and art pieces that are kept inside. Yeah, but even on the outside it's just beautiful, so beautifully decorated with the name of each building is written there at the top. So they've got these beautifully ornate clocks, and then on the right hand side, I don't think we'll go have a look, but they have these trees that are made from gemstones. Just really ornate and beautiful. You could really spend a whole day here. I spent just half a day, but you could spend a whole day. There's so much to see and so much detail. It's just overwhelming. Cindy says you can see why it took 14 years to build with such detail. So now we're going to be going to see the dragons. They just drew that walkway over there, so I'll tell you all about them. It's called the 9 dragon wall that we're walking to. So it's just through that door over there. The 9 dragon wall, or 9 dragon screen, which we're about to see, is a type of screen wall with reliefs of 9 different Chinese dragons. Such walls are typically found in imperial Chinese palaces and gardens. So as soon as we walk out of this massive area, I love how the wall, like just the walls here are so massive. It makes you feel so small. If you're coming up here to the wall. So I'm going to tell you about it now. So an early reference to the tradition of putting a screen wall at the gate. This is something that they started doing quite early, and as we know, China and dragons are synonymous with each other. And the Forbidden City is, of course, not the only palace with a dragon wall. We've got a couple in Hong Kong. In some of the temples here. So a little bit about the Nine Dragon Wall. It was built in 1773 during the Qing Dynasty. That's from 1644 to 1911. This wall is about 20 meters long. That's about 66 feet. And about 3.5 meters high, or about 11.5 feet. There are 9 dragons, each playing with a pearl, and they are carved in a very lifelike manner. There's yellow, blue, and purple and white that are applied to the carvings to depict the dragons and make the wall very attractive. The face of the wall has 270 pieces of colored glaze, 5 ridges, and another 9 small dragons on the main ridge. Now the wall is not perfect. If you observe carefully, you may find the third white dragon as a piece of wood in its belly, and it is said that a carpenter carved it to replace a broken piece of glazed tile. And it's just beautiful how 3D is it now. Evelyn is saying, where in Hong Kong? So Evelyn, you can see something similar in the Wong Tai Sin temple, and in some of the there's a couple of the Tin Hau temples. I know there's a lot of Tin Hau temples in Hong Kong. There's a couple of them that have some dragon wall reliefs. So now we're going to be coming to, Cindy was asking a little bit earlier, when are we going to be able to see inside where somebody lived. We're going to now have a look very shortly. We're going to be walking into the space where the Queen Mother resided. We're going to see her throne. And she had a very special place. Lena Cohen says there's a fragment of the Dragon Wall in the British Museum. I haven't been, we've been to the Wong Tai Sin Temple. Maybe we should go again. I haven't been on, we've gone on Hago, but I haven't been on YouTube. So this is where we're going to be able to go inside, if I remember correctly, and finally we'll get to like have a look at the sort of living place where the royals, the Empress or the Queen Mother lived. It's going to be around this corner. So you can see everybody coming together here. think that, as far as I recall, the next building is going to be that building. Yes. So we're going to enter through there. The courtyard, I love these courtyards. They're just, everyone is beautiful. And this, as you get further and further, it gets more intimate and they get smaller and smaller. So, so Diane says perhaps a piece of the wall at the British Museum is from the Summer Palace destroyed by the exhibition force. Okay, so here we have, this is where the Queen Mother of the Emperor, this was her space. So this is the one space where you really get to see like inside. A lot of the Forbidden City is outside, and over here you really get a real sense of what it was like to live inside the Forbidden City, and you could just see like so much work has gone into just every little nook and cranny. Everything's been crafted. Neil said, so I just want to answer a couple of questions. So yeah, so on this trip that I went to the Summer Palace, also another UNESCO World Heritage Site in Beijing. Beijing has, I think, 7 UNESCO World Heritage Sites. I think I got to about 4 or 5 of them. And Neil's asking, are there guides or info or self-guides? So if you're coming to the Forbidden City, there's a couple of things you can do. You can book you can just get the entrance ticket and walk around yourself, or you can book and get a guide. That's what I did. So I had a guide taking me around, and I'll show you a couple of things. The guide actually gave us something when we left, or when we started the tour, so I'll show you that before we end. The other useful thing that they give you is they give you an audio guide. So if you want an audio guide, you can get that as well. So lots of options. So you can either do it at your own pace, get an audio guide, or you have a guide that's with you, or you can just walk around. Yeah, I would highly recommend either taking the audio guide or having a guide with you. It just brings the palace to life. And there we have the end. I want to show you. We're gonna close that now, and I want to show you. So our guide gave us this beautiful envelope called Discovery of the Forbidden City, and inside there are photos from the beginning. Here's one from 1901. I just want to show you. So that's the army that's lined up there, and that's at the very front where we began our tour of the Forbidden City. And we were given a bunch of old photographs, and it was explanations. This is when in the 1920s, when the Forbidden City was abandoned by the emperor, and they were moving objects for safekeeping. And here's a old photo from World War II. You can see. I found Neil's asking, is it costly to have a guide? I found Hong Kong, like I can just compare things to Hong Kong. Hong Kong is a very expensive city, and I found that mainland China is a lot more reasonable than Hong Kong. So I found it not too costly. Yeah, so those are some of the old photos. Yeah, so I would really recommend, if you ever find yourself in Beijing, spend at least half the day in the Forbidden City, and it's an amazing space. And when you leave, don't forget to just walk across the road to Jingshan Park, and for about 2 RMB, or about 3 RMB, you can take a little walk up the hill in that park, and you'll have that beautiful view that we saw today. Oh, and Diane's mentioning so many items from the Forbidden City are in Taipei, taken by Chiang Kai-shek, an amazing collection there. Yeah, so a lot of the I've actually been to that Palace Museum. So if you've ever been to Taipei in Taiwan, they've got a Palace Museum there, and a lot of the objects from the Forbidden City are in that museum too, which is really cool to see. Evelyn's asking, the audio guide, is it in English or Mandarin? When I looked, they had like 27 different languages. So whichever language, there's an option for 27. So there was English, Mandarin, and Spanish, and another 24 options. So a lot of objects, a lot of yeah, a lot to choose from. And I've actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to look through my old Google backup, and I went to that the Palace Museum in Taipei, and I'll see if I can find some of the objects I took photographs of, and I'll put them on the Facebook group as well. And Neil's just saying, yeah, that would be great. We almost at 1,000 subscribers, and I just want to thank you all for supporting me and joining these tours, and I can't wait to bring you more. We've got next week we're going to be going to the what is it called? It's another UNESCO World Heritage Site. It's called the Temple of Heaven, and so Cindy's asking, what are the 2 museums about? So inside the Forbidden City, there are 2 museums. They've got like precious objects from the Forbidden City, so a lot of jewelry. And the second museum also focused on archaeological digs. There was a focus on that. Joanne asked, did you go to the Tibetan temple in Beijing? No, I didn't get a chance to go there. But I have to go back to Beijing because there's so many things I still need to see. And then what did Neil asked? Yeah, so yeah, next week we're going to be going to the Temple of Heaven, and that's going to be amazing. We can also look right inside the Temple of Heaven, and we'll walk around it. I'm looking forward to seeing that. That's going to be another UNESCO World Heritage Site. And then the following week, we've got we're going to be in Shanghai. We're going to be walking along the Bund, and then we're also going to be doing a tour to the Ming tombs. I like to think of the Ming tombs as like Egypt has the Valley of the Kings, and China has the Ming tombs. Now the Ming tombs, of course, not as ancient as the Valley of the Kings. It's from the 14th century, but it's a really beautiful place to go, and we'll be taking you there. And also another UNESCO World Heritage Site. So lots of UNESCO World Heritage Sites over the next couple of weeks, and when we finish these tours, I'll be flying off, and I'm hoping to do a live in another country soon. So thank you so much for joining today, and I look forward to seeing you soon. If you haven't subscribed, please hit that subscribe button. And Lethargy says, you choose the best holidays, Matt. Yeah, I'll tell you, like, oh, there's so many places I want to go. I haven't decided yet, but I will be taking you with me for sure. And but before that, we've got lots to see and lots to do. So yeah, thank you for joining me. And if you're not part of it, join the Facebook group. The link is on this YouTube channel. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe. And Robin says, greater. And Jan says, thank you, Matt. Thank you all. Thanks for all your messages. Thank you, Lethargy. And yeah, and if you want a tip, you can also go to buy me a coffee. That is going, those tips, like right now I'm sending them all to my friend Paula, who's just had an operation, and she still needs to raise a little bit of money for that, so I'm sending that to her. So I hope you enjoyed walking through the Forbidden City with me, and I look forward to seeing you next week at the same time. And Raven says, it was great, thanks. And Sandy says, great tour, Matt, thank you for showing us. It's a pleasure. I'm sure for me it's a real honor to be able to not just go to a place and post something on Instagram, but to share it in like a very real and tangible way. So I feel lucky that I'm able to do that. So, and thank you for showing up and watching. It makes it special that I get to share it in this way. And Diane says, terrific tour as always, thank you. So I'll be posting extra information on the Facebook group. Until next time, I'll see you again soon. Bye bye.